As we've all been made aware, Ghislaine Maxwell has seemingly opened up concerning her knowledge of the Epstein saga as this dumpster fire of broken promises from the Trump administration to release the information, which was to include names, has enraged the public. Yet, from what we have all witnessed repeatedly in the lack of accountability enacted upon those with money, power, and position, why would any of us think that despite her meeting with the DOJ, that any justice is really going to come from this? Time and time again, we have witnessed evidence be exposed of crimes that have been committed by the rich and powerful, with no one ever being indicted or even tried for these crimes. We've all seen the evidence that Hillary Clinton used her personal servers to communicate classified materials, which is a crime. We have seen the evidence that the Russia collusion accusation against Donald Trump was knowingly false, yet purposely promoted as true by the Democratic Party as well as by the legacy media in their attempt to influence the 2016 presidential election by branding Donald Trump a traitor. We have seen the evidence that the Hunter Biden laptop was proven to be real a whole year before the 2020 election, wherein everyone in the Biden administration, including Joe Biden himself, the Biden DOJ, FBI, and again the legacy media, promoted it purposely as a false narrative from the Trump side. We have seen the government hearings where evidence was revealed that powerful companies like Facebook and Twitter had been coerced by the Biden administration to censor opinions that were contrary to the Democrats' talking points on everything from the COVID-19 vaccines to their economic and immigration failures. However, despite all of the House and Senate committee meetings that have investigated these things, no one is ever held accountable. Millions of our tax dollars are spent each year to investigate the crimes of the rich and powerful. Yet it is just a waste, as despite all of the evidence presented, justice is never served. Most recently, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has released documents which allegedly claim that Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other top Democratic officials knowingly instigated the creation of false evidence to promote the Russia-Trump collusion accusation as a purposed attempt to manipulate the 2020 election results. Still, after however many millions of taxpayer dollars will be spent in committee investigation hearings, does anyone really think that despite the evidence presented that any of these people will be prosecuted and held to account? That leads us to the issue of the Epstein case and whether we can expect to see these disgusting perverts and pedophiles be held accountable for their heinous crimes. Because, quite frankly, these children who were horribly abused deserve justice. Yet, despite most Americans wanting to see justice done here, the reality is that all we will see are countless threats of indictments and continued broken promises until the issue simply fades away in obscurity. One would have to ask why that is. Why does each side of the political aisle continually promote justice and integrity, yet never seem to fulfill their promise of actually attaining it? The answer to me is quite simple. Wherein our country was founded on the premise of government for the people, it has long since been perverted to become government over the people. Or as I like to say, a government that puts politics before the people. The classic example of this can be seen in how Donald Trump campaigned on a platform that reiterated the need for government to be for the people. And because the American people had just experienced the effects of the woke nightmare of a government that puts its politics before the people, he easily won re-election. Now, mind you, even though analysts from both sides are coming forward in agreement that many of the things Donald Trump has already done is actually benefiting the people and the country, it does not excuse the fact that it seems that his administration is avoiding seeking justice for the Epstein victims. I have heard many questions why the Trump administration all of a sudden would back off on its promise to get justice for the Epstein victims, but the answer for that is probably in the game of politics. You see, when we have a government that truly is for the people, then they will do what is right regardless of whether or not they could benefit from their doing what is wrong. When I think about why Trump would back off on his promise to bring justice to the Epstein victims, I do not believe that it is because he is on the list. After all, The Democrats had the files during the election season, and without a doubt, they would have exposed it because he would have lost the election. So that leads me to think that there are two possibilities that could be motivating him. First, it could be that he is protecting certain people that, if exposed, could severely damage the credibility of his party, thereby creating a greater difficulty for him in his ability to enact his agenda. Second, it is possible that there are powerful people on the other side of the aisle that are on the list, and as long as he holds on to it, he knows that he can control their votes. Now, you can wonder why I think this way, but what other reasons could there be when exposing these low-life pedophiles and bringing them to justice would only garner such favor with the overwhelming majority of the people? Let's look at the timeline of events that cause so many of us to believe that there is some type of cover-up. At the first, Donald Trump promised full disclosure of the Epstein files and accountability to those who were in them. He claimed he wanted justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. However, once he attained office, all of that began to change and the game of playing politics once again began to rear its ugly head. In what honestly seemed like an attempt to remain diligent in their promised pursuit of justice for the victims, Attorney General Pam Bondi came forward with the big announcement that she had the client list and files on her desk and would release them soon. Yet, this epic release was not given to the established press. It was given to selected podcasters in what I believe was the hope that in their knowing how influential podcasters have become in public opinion, the podcasters would promote that Trump was fulfilling his promise of transparency. However, these podcasters weren't that dumb and actually led public opinion in the complete opposite way because there was nothing new in the files they received. This, of course, brought much deserved scrutiny to Pam Bondi and the Trump administration because of how miserably their seemingly blatant attempt to conduct people failed. So, to recover from that, FBI Director Kash Patel and Assistant Director Dan Bongino went out and gave a joint interview with Fox News, wherein they both basically claimed that there was nothing new to see in the Epstein saga. Despite all of the evidence that they had fervently and ongoingly touted prior to their taking over the FBI, along with the absolute promise of full transparency, they now were claiming that there was no such evidence. They publicly claimed that there was no client list and that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. However, during a White House press briefing, Peter Doocy from Fox News questioned Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about the Epstein client list. He asked, "So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General says she had on her desk?" Leavitt responded by asking him to go back and look at the quote. He answered by saying, "I got the quote. John Roberts said," and this he said to Pam Bondi at the time she made the claim that she had the list, "DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?" And she, Pam Bondi, said, "It's sitting on my desk right now to review." Now, to any rational mind, one would believe that it is inconceivable to think that for Pam Bondi to hold the highest office in law as the Attorney General of the United States, that she would be well versed and experienced enough to not answer so specific a question concerning such a huge subject to the people without knowing exactly what it is that she was answering. Now, what was interesting about said interview was that Kash Patel was noticeably comfortable while Dan Bongino was excessively sweating. When he answered the question pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein, his face had the look of a child lying to his parents when he knew that the parents already had the truth. Shortly afterwards, though, Dan Bongino asserted that because of the Epstein debacle, either Pam Bondi had to leave or he would. Now, if he went public agreeing with the same message given by Pam Bondi, why would he have such an issue with their handling of the case? Also, what I noticed is that in all of the announcements and interviews made to the public, I cannot recall a single person making the specific claim that they do not have any of the names of Epstein's pedophile clients. Still, following that Bongino and Bondi conflict, a conflict that raised a lot of eyebrows, Suddenly, the MLK files were released, and once again, the administration was touting the fulfillment of their promise and being transparent. Shortly after that, Tulsi Gabbard goes public with the accusation that she has discovered files that directly indict President Barack Obama and his administration as committing a treasonous conspiracy in knowingly directing the false Russia collusion in his attempt to manipulate the 2016 presidential election. Now, let's face it, I don't know what the whole truth about all of this is. None of us ever really know if anything a politician tells us is true. Yet what we have all witnessed over and over again is that this is how both parties play the game of politics. Whenever an administration is caught in a scandal, they attempt to distract the people from the issue first with passive aggressive denials and talking points, followed by their using whatever else they can to place the public's attention on other issues. They do this because they know from experience that if they continue to avoid the pending issue and bombard the people with other issues, over time the people will lose interest in the scandal and simply move on. And that, my friends, is how I believe these corrupt politicians and rich and powerful criminals will escape having to face justice for their part in Epstein's trafficking of children. Sadly, from what I just laid out, this same strategy is what I see playing out in real time from the Trump administration, and why I tend to believe that once again, those corrupt politicians and those rich and powerful pedophiles will escape being held accountable for their crimes and victimizing what is probably thousands of children. Let me end by saying this. It sickens me to think that justice will probably not come for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. It sickens me to think that these deplorable abusers will probably not be held to account for their utterly evil actions. But despite what seemingly is happening to prevent accountability, we can yet still hope for some miracle to occur and witness these monsters finally receive the punishment they deserve. So, those are my thoughts. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy this type of content, please take a second to hit that like button, as that is very helpful to me. And of course, don't forget that notification bell, as that will ensure that you will never miss a new video. Lastly, for those of you who have already subscribed, thank you very much for your kind support. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be a great help for me to grow the channel if you would consider doing so. It is free and only takes a second. Well, that's it for today. As usual, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and God bless you. Until next time.